Still talking about matters climate, is the mighty river Zambezi in southern Africa dying a natural death, or is it being driven to extinction by human activity? This is a big question that our reporter Judith Akolo seeks answers to in the following special report on River Zambezi.
River Zambezi is Africa's fourth longest river. The river and her tributaries serve as the lifeblood for millions of inhabitants of many countries in Southern Africa region, including Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Angola, part of DRC, Botswana, and Mozambique. River Zambezi, with its waterfall at Mosi Otunya, or the cloud that thunders, on the Zambia side, and Victoria Falls on the Zimbabwe side, has been a touristic marvel. Today, the once majestic river is slowing to a whimper, battered and dying a slow, painful death, and now on the brink of an ecological disaster.
Drying of the Zambezi really is a reflection of the vulnerabilities and risks that Zambia gets exposed to. And we recognize that there's need to diversify away from dependence on the vagaries of the weather.
The impacts of a drought arising from the El Nino Southern Oscillation ENSO that saw Eastern Africa drenched in rain and floods has caused a devastating drought in Southern Africa. The drought is threatening both ecosystem and the people who have relied on the river's resources for generations. Among the major threats to the existence of River Zambezi is deforestation in the catchment areas that feed the river that travels over 2,400 kilometers and empties its waters into the Indian Ocean via the Mozambique Channel. The forests in the catchment areas have been felled to provide energy for cooking in form of firewood and charcoal for the region's inhabitants, whose levels of poverty have been rising.
We have to unpack what do we mean by this ecosystem. Is it forests that have been run down due to developments that have been taking place? If it's forests that have been run down, how do you regenerate those forests? And if there's a risk for further degeneration in certain places, what measures are you putting in place in order to make sure that the exploitation of those forests is within the context of a sustainable approach?
This is compounded by the fast growth rate of the population that has led to an increase in consumption, hence the need to open up more areas for land on which to cultivate food crops and rear livestock. According to Dr. Gabriel Pollen, the Zambian National Coordinator for Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit, the country is now working on ensuring ecosystem restoration.
And coordinated urban development can interfere with the management of forests and the wetlands. So what we're seeing now in Zambia is that before you can actually build any structures, before you can undertake any large-scale investments, you have to go through the Zambia Environmental Management Authority to get a license.
In an interview on the sidelines of the just-ended 9th African Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, held in Windhoek, Namibia, Dr. Pollen said that the government is building the capacity of the meteorological department in order to improve accuracy in early warning information so as to reduce the impacts of hydrometeorological disasters like the drought that is slowly draining River Zambezi of its water.
We harness the water when it hits the ground in terms of our food security. Can we build water resources management infrastructure focused on irrigation? So we need dams, we need technology for irrigation, but we also need energy that does not necessarily depend on hydro in order to support food security.
Perhaps the drying River Zambezi is a wake-up call to countries on the continent to begin to evaluate the possible ways of protecting shared resources like rivers and lakes for posterity.
What the current drought has taught us is how do you move away from depending on the vagaries of the weather. And that disaster management is everyone's responsibility, and we're calling upon the communities themselves to also show that they're responsible for their own safety, they're responsible for their own lives.
Judith Akolo, KBC, Channel 1.